Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everybody, and welcome to Pangolin, the conservation podcast, the show dedicated to exploring and amplifying the world's underappreciated conservation stories. The stories that inspire me, and I hope will inspire you too. I'm your host, Jack Baker, and welcome to a very sad but also very happy, very excited welcome to the final episode of our Pangolin Pride celebration. Over the last 5 episodes, we have celebrated the amazing and pivotal role that the LGBTQ plus community plays in the conservation and nature space. We've talked about seals, we've talked about seabirds, we've talked about queer ecology, climate change, and so much more. And to round it all off, I have a familiar friend, one who is fantastic, amazing, and this series I feel would be nothing without. I am joined by the absolutely incredible and inspiring CJ Greco. CJ is the Teen Programs Manager for the Lincoln Park Zoo, a member of the NAAW's 30 Under 30, and a member of the leadership team for Out in Nature. And today they are here to celebrate Pride and talk about all of those incredible, amazing things. So, for one last time this series, thank you so much for joining me today, CJ. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, what an introduction. I am just honored to be back on Pangolin. It's a fave time of mine to be here. Thanks for having me, Jack.
I'm so glad because for anyone who hasn't listened to the previous episode that CJ appeared on, they were here at Christmas and at New
Mhm.
Year to celebrate the
Mhm.
holidays. And now, of course, for Pride Month, we have brought them back out
Yeah.
for all of the fun celebrations of the year. You are here. We're gonna have a great time. I'm very excited. And yes, I also just thank you so much because I feel like we've gotten to the point of this series now where this is kind of one of the last ones I'm recording,
Mhm.
and I've walked away from every single one being like, these are my heroes, these are the people who inspire me,
Yeah.
and I
Oh,
feel so amazing. So thank you so much for making the time to be here. Like, it
that's so
means the
sweet.
absolute world.
That's so sweet. Yeah, I'm honored. Like I said, let's get into it.
Yes. Well, before we get into it, for anyone who hasn't listened to our past kind of conversation,
Yeah.
when you were here, pardon?
No, I just said yes.
Yes, I was like,
I'm affirming you.
yes.
Yes.
I said just my lack of self belief got the better of me there.
Yeah. You're doing great.
No, no. What I was going to say is for the people who haven't listened to the previous episode, obviously you have been here before. We kind of talked a little bit about what you do then,
Yeah.
but for if you haven't listened, you don't know who you are. CJ, introduce yourself to listeners. Who are
Yeah, for
you? What
sure.
you do? Yeah.
I mean, you just crushed a beautiful introduction. So first of all, incredible job. But I
Thank
will
you.
introduce myself. My name is CJ Greco. I use they and she pronouns. I am a non-binary trans woman in Chicago, Illinois, in the United States. I am an educator, activist, naturalist. Sort of wear many hats and do many things. But really, the sort of thing that ties all of my work together is making the outdoors more accessible for everybody, whether that's young folks like teens, whether that's people with disabilities, whether that's queer people. That's really my whole thing is making the outdoors more inclusive and accessible. And I've done all different sorts of things. Like Jack mentioned, I am the teen programs manager at Lincoln Park Zoo. And we'll sort of get into that in maybe just a little bit. But in addition, I work as a member of the leadership team for an organization called Out in Nature, which is a small volunteer-led affinity group organization here in the Chicagoland region, where we create outdoor recreational outings for the LGBTQIA plus community here in Chicago, sort of that are safe and inclusive and welcoming, because nature can sometimes not be that. Um, and that's, like I said, a big part of what I do and who I am.
Yeah, I think the perfect introduction. It's almost like as a fellow podcast host, you may have been asked to introduce yourself before, maybe once or twice.
Many a time,
Yep.
my friend, many a
hmm
time.
You've got it down. You've got the elevator pitch absolutely nailed, and
Thank
so
you.
amazing because I
Thank
think we're going to dive
you.
into we're going to dive into so many of those little the elements of what you do and kind of pick it all apart and kind of talk about all of these things.
Mhm.
Especially because for Pride Month, I thought it was a nice way. Like, we've had all these stories throughout the month, but I think what is kind of a nice thing to end on is like these kind of discussions of like, how do we create these inclusive spaces and
Yeah.
why are they important? Let's not just talk about how amazing the work that goes on in the community is. Let's talk about how we can foster these spaces ourselves. So yeah, it's going to be, I think, a really nice chat to kind of end out the series on, so that no one has an excuse walking away to not be doing it.
Yeah, it's easy to make spaces inclusive, and we're going to talk how to do it.
Perfect. Yes. So I guess like we touched on this a little bit at Christmas and New Year as well, but there's something like whenever I have people on, I'm always intrigued by like their backstory, right, and how they got into nature. And like I think we talked about it a little bit, but it was kind of like there's a whole in depth story of like this and this and this and this, and I kind of went, that's interesting.
Let's circle
Um,
back. Pride
we'll
Month. Here
circle
we
back
are.
in 6 months' time, and we'll get onto it. So yeah, can we circle back to
Yeah.
that and go, what is your like, where did your love for nature come from?
Yeah.
Why, how did we end up like
Yeah.
with the CJ we have today in the nature space doing amazing things? Like, yeah.
Yeah. This is a really good question. So, I've sort of been involved in one way, shape, or form in the conservation space for as of today, like roughly the past like 17 plus years. I'm not even 30 yet.
I was gonna say you don't look old enough to have been in the space for 17 years.
Yeah,
Good
so
for
I
you.
actually started volunteering when I was 11 years old.
Okay.
And I have been sort of doing this ever since. I started volunteering at a small zoo in Wheaton, Illinois called Cosley Zoo as a part of their junior zookeeper program, where I was sort of doing interpretive work. I was doing basic ethogram animal behavior research. I was doing animal handling. And then from there, I went on to work as a youth volunteer at Brookfield Zoo, now Brookfield Zoo Chicago, member of their youth program, doing scientific research with primates, interpreting out in the park to guests, all different sorts of things. I went on to sort of work as an educator at Brookfield Zoo for a number of years. I worked as a naturalist when I worked as a naturalist at like a field site doing some like nature outing leading with birding, with bats, with owls, with all sorts of things like that. Macroinvertebrates in the water was always really fun too. And during COVID, I worked as a classroom teacher, and now I'm at Lincoln Park Zoo in Chicago as the teen programs manager, which has been really, really fulfilling. Like my whole career has been being a zoo teen, working with the zoo teens. Now I'm like managing all of the zoo teen programs, which is really, really exciting. It's a very full circle moment for me in this role.
Yep. That's so yeah. And I don't know about you, but like there's sometimes like I help facilitate a class that comes in once a month at Edinburgh Zoo where I work. And I'm always like, oh, like there's little
Yeah,
me, and I can see it in them. And I'm like,
yeah,
oh, you are gonna like you're asking the same questions I would have asked. You're
yeah,
sometimes asking questions that I would never even have thought of sometimes, which
yeah,
always shocks me. I'm like, oh, they're getting smarter every generation. Like they're getting like
yeah.
more like curious, and that's amazing and so fantastic.
I mean,
Like,
I think just it's the ingenuity of young people that is going to keep conservation growing and evolving. Like for my whole like career in working with young people in conservation, I have always like said like my goal is not to get like accolades or awards. My goal is to be a thank you in somebody else's speech. Right. So like when these young people go, and I've worked with young people who are now like have their PhDs in like ecological sciences and they're doing incredible work. And if I'm like like a note, like an asterisk somewhere, that is what really means something to me, that I helped make this massive impact through inspiring one person.
yep. Yep. And I think that's the thing, right? Is like we so often measure, and this is my PhD, and it's my job at the zoo. So this is why it's on my brain. But like that's impact that is so often missed, right? That's the impact that changes people's lives. We can talk about numbers and money and species saved, all very important in a very like quantitative way that is easy to assess. Education is so hard to do that for because you can say you sat 100 people in a classroom, great, but what next and where what did they take away, and those stories are the ones that I'm always like, there's the impact, that's the story we need to be tracking in some kind of like
Yeah.
qualitative way, but it's impossible to do.
I mean, in
So
the
that's
past, like, 13 plus years since I've like actually started like supervising teens, for me, I've probably worked with thousands of teens in my career. And I still know everybody's name. I still get emails from them telling me, like, updating me what they're doing. Like, it's so very sweet. Like, the number of letters of recommendation that I've written. Yesterday, I was out doing something for work, and a student emailed me saying, I just got the scholarship that you recommended me for. Thank you so much. It was just like, these are the little things that are just so sweet and affirming. and make my everyday life like worth it. Like I'm so fortunate in the fact that I get to say I have the best job in the world.
Hmm. Hmm.
You
And
know,
perfect segue. What
yeah,
is the best job in the world? What is it you're actually like? We're talking about how you're inspiring people, but I'm
yeah.
actually like, what is it you do to inspire people,
Yeah,
CJ? That's a.
so at Lincoln Park Zoo is a small zoo, relatively speaking, in sort of right in the heart of Chicago. It's about, I think the main zoo is close to 35-ish acres. Plus, we have sort of a natural area just south that adds maybe like another 10. It's a pretty small space, especially compared to other local organizations. The Brookfield Zoo, like I mentioned, where I used to work, is over 200 acres big, so significantly larger. And we're right in the heart of Chicago, right on Lake Michigan. And it's a really interesting and beautiful place to be that is sort of a break from the big city, but also still empowers like city living, right? Our whole focus is that we are a small zoo that makes a big impact, and we work like really closely with a lot of kind of city staff to understand wildlife existing in cities, from birds and bats to things like opossums and raccoons. We're studying all different sorts of things that we are coexisting with in urban spaces. And my job at the zoo is to sort of educate our young people in the city on what they can do to make an impact. And usually that is through the different programs that we have on our teen program suite. So there's a program kind of focused on advocacy where teens are actually making a difference. And obviously, all of the teens are making a difference in every program, but this one program is specifically focused on advocacy, sort of like an advisory board. Another program is focused on research and empowering teens to do research with mentors who are scientists at the zoo. And then another program is focused on interpretation and talking to guests out in the park. So teens actively engaging with guests from all over the world in the heart of the city. It's some really beautiful stuff. So those are kind of a really brief overview of just some of the really cool things that our teens are doing at the zoo. But my main job is to sort of oversee all of it. So I'm managing things like budgets, things like schedules, things like hiring, things like training. All of those things are sort of encompassed in my job.
Yes, yes. Well, getting to watch the wonderful results as they come out as well. Like,
Precisely, yeah.
so yeah, yeah, that's amazing. And like, I'm always like, I'm there like, how can I find an excuse to come to Chicago?
Hey,
Like,
I got a real
where's the
cozy couch you
excuse?
can sleep on, Jack. I got a real cozy couch you can sleep
I
on.
mean, I just need to find somebody to, I need to find a conference or something that's going to be in Chicago in a year or two or something and be like, yeah,
Yeah.
I need to go. Why? Well, cause I do.
It's
Like,
important, actually.
I need to learn about teen programs
I mean,
and the
honestly, I
zoo.
would say the thing that Lincoln Park Zoo, we have some incredible science centers at Lincoln Park Zoo. We have a science center called the Lester E. Fisher Center that's focused on primate cognition, which is really fascinating. We have the Urban Wildlife Institute, like I mentioned, specifically studying wildlife in cities. And we're actually Lincoln Park Zoo is the home of the Association of Zoos and Aquariums Population Management Center, which is an organization like a kind of a sub department of AZA, which is this larger accrediting body, and they manage all of the different populations in zoos, which is really cool.
Hmm. That's
So really
for
rad
a
stuff that
small
Lincoln Park
zoo.
Zoo is doing.
Like for a small zoo, I see now what you mean about the small zoo, big impact.
Yeah,
Like that's a yeah, that's an
yeah, we do
important
a lot of good
group.
stuff.
That's exciting. Oh, that's fun. Yeah, okay, I'm coming to visit.
Tell me when, I'll
And
be there.
yeah, no, that's I will. I will. People should stop saying that because I will show up. Like some
No,
of guests
please,
have learned. I will.
please do.
No, that's amazing. And like it's interesting. Like I feel like the three kind of categories almost you were talking about before, but the kind of interpretation, the science, and then what was the third? It was interpretation,
Advocacy.
science, advocacy. That's a
Yeah,
really nice trio of things, right? That I feel like I. It's on my mind a lot because Biaza, literally on day of recording today in the UK, has just announced like the new standards for UK zoos of the things they have to meet, right? And I think for the future of zoos and conservation, those three things like we cannot function without, right? Those three pillars are things that all zoos need to have to stand upon, and the wider conservation field needs to have to stand upon. So to train people within this zoo setting where they're learning about urban wildlife, where they're learning about these things, where they're doing that, and then going out and equipping them with skills that maybe later down the line they aren't applying directly to conservation, but they know where those skills have come from. They've kind of become embedded in their minds is such a powerful
And it's not
trio.
only just like young people, it's teens. It's teens in this city where the public school system maybe isn't prioritizing them, or maybe they don't have the most safe or secure housing. Like our teens are so like dedicated and feel so much ownership of the zoo because it's a place that my job to make it feel safe and welcoming, right? My job is to make inclusive spaces where they can learn and express themselves. You know, I have been really fortunate to be the person that like many teens come out to for the first time. Like that is an honor that I have so often, and it's such a privilege to be that person for those young people because my job is to create those spaces. And I want to clarify too, it's not just me making those spaces. There's an incredible team of educators doing all of this work. I'm just here representing them, but you know, it is a really, really powerful thing to work with the next generation of conservation leaders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Like, that's incredible, and I wonder, like, that kinda leads really naturally into a question I was gonna ask, right? Which is, like, how do we begin to create those spaces? And I think you've touched on it. Maybe setting some of the context, I think, is really important for this, right? Because, like, this is not like, it'll be different dependent on location, on the groups of people you're working with and talking for. So maybe, like, a little bit of the context is to the audience you have, and
Yeah.
then how you begin to, like, bring those people in and
Yeah.
together and
I'll
create
say,
this
Jack, you
space.
know, I've actually led like conference sessions at some conferences out in here in the city of Chicago, kind of focusing specifically on creating inclusive spaces for the LGBTQ community. Because right now in the States, without getting into politics too much, it's not a super safe space for the LGBTQ community. And I hold a lot of personal responsibility. No one's placing that upon me, but I hold it to make sure those spaces remain safe, at least to an extent. Um, so leading those conference sessions has been really, really powerful to educate people on how to do this, and I can do that right now with you. So I think it's in taking a step back a bit to give you that context. When thinking about creating inclusive spaces, it's important to think about like who are we making the spaces for? If you are making a space for a teen, it's going to be different than making a space for an adult. If you're making a space for an adult, it might be different than making a space for an elderly person. It might be different making space for parents or families. So these are just different things to consider. I also want to mention that I'm going to give a bunch of tips. They might not always work, and that's okay. It's acknowledging that there is always room to grow and change. I've shared these tips at conferences. They might not fit every situation, and that is just how it goes because every space is different. Um, I guess kind of jumping into those tips and tricks for creating those inclusive spaces. For me, it's really important to just understand the needs of your community. Like I said, know who you're making the space for and tailor it to those needs. So I specifically make spaces for the LGBTQ community and for teens in my like day to day life. And in both of those spaces, it is important to just one, fully be yourself and fully know to accept someone else for being themselves in whatever form that takes. In whatever form that takes, right? Like I think for me, I mean, my story of coming out is very long and not fit for this podcast, but it was something that was really hard and really scary. And I feel like I didn't really figure it out until I had been in a space where I saw people being themselves too. And I think that's a really big thing when you're working with people who are still growing and developing, like teens. And it's also really important when you're working with like vulnerable populations, like BIPOC individuals or queer folks who need to feel and see themselves represented in the leadership. Um, Kind of going on from that, I think it's just knowing what um, knowing what safety means for those groups beyond just their needs, right? So my group might have a need of like, hey, I need everyone to stay on this path while we're on this nature outing. That is a need the group has. That's a need that I have as a leader. But like beyond that, what do we really need? So thinking about like safety of from maybe like law enforcement, thinking of safety from things like uh protesters or
Mhm.
bullies, trying
Mhm.
to say things
And
as PC as I can.
No, but and it's something even in producing this podcast that I'm
Yeah,
conscious of, right? It's even not in the physical space now. I'm like, I don't post about the Pride Month series on Twitter because I'm like, I don't want to deal with that, and I don't want to expose my wonderful, lovely, amazing guests to that. And thinking about that safety element is so key to the designing these things and making sure they remain the spaces they should be.
yeah.
Like,
I
yeah.
mean, one thing that I think we have been learning with Out in Nature. So, like I mentioned, Out in Nature at the top of the podcast, Out in Nature, we've started just like posting the events on our social media or like emailing out to our listservs, but like only people who sign up for the events get the location just for safety reasons, right? Like if people show up and who aren't signed up or aren't registered, it could be unsafe, and that's not fair to anybody involved, me myself included, right? Like
Yeah.
I want to be safe too.
Hmm.
Um, I think one thing to think about is like the significance of those affinity spaces, right? So affinity space is essentially a space for an underrepresented group, whether that's queer folks, women, BIPOC folks, whomever, that they can sort of have for themselves. So affinity spaces I think are really, really valuable. And that can be in the form of like employee resource groups at an organization, or it can be in the form of like an out in nature, like a volunteer led thing, or it can be a full nonprofit or a full corporation. I have no idea, but usually it's led and organized by that specific group of people. And those spaces, again, for seeing yourself. Like again, I don't think I saw another trans person until I was an adult. Like that, that's meaningful to me, you know. And I think being an out visible queer person is important to the young people that I work with.
Hmm.
Just I think even for the straight and cis ones, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, because it shows that they like it gives that person that they can look up to, right? And
Yeah,
even if they don't want to do exactly what you do, right? They might
right,
be interested in a more scientific role or a
right.
more kind of just they just want to do admin within the zoo. Like they don't want to
It is an
necessarily be
important job and I don't wanna do
like
it, so
yeah, like it could be like but just seeing people in that space and recognizing, hang on, like oh, there's and it's sometimes goes so unacknowledged, right? They might not even clock it as a thing, but like having people there, especially when historically every book in the conservation space has not been written by people who are very representative. Every TV show has not been hosted by a necessarily diverse and representative group, right? And that is changing. But it is on us in creating these spaces to also ensure that it continues to keep changing and keep moving forward and keep, producing this kind of, this creative, this nice safe space. That's yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Hmm.
I think another thing too is if you are some sort of organizer, like a leader or a representative who wants to start creating inclusive spaces, I think it's really important to do the work for your like of yourself, right? Like who are you? Who is your identity? One thing that I've really picked up from a couple of other fellow educators that I work with is asking people to describe their gender identity without using any gendered language. So I think I'm going to ask you, Jack, right now, put you on the spot here. How would you describe your gender identity without using gendered language?
That's a really tricky question. That's a because like you would like you naturally go into falling into like
Uh
everything
huh.
becomes gendered as soon as you
Yeah.
start doing it. You start because your mind is so used to
You're like, oh, you
associating
could say like, oh,
even
I'm a man, I'm a brother, I'm a son, but those are
yeah,
all gendered. How do you degender that language?
like I and you yeah because you can't like and then like if you go I'm a person like
Yeah.
that is so
It's
I'm
true, but does it
but
describe
it's
who you are?
who I am.
Not necessarily.
No, you have to be more specific. That's okay. Now I'm fumbling because I'm like I can't
Yeah.
think of like my
I,
gender.
I,
I am
I can
yeah.
give you I
I
can give you a little bit of help.
okay. Just a push in the right
Yeah, I can
direction.
give you a little bit
Yeah.
of help. One thing for me that's really helpful is looking at it through the lens of nature. Nature, we've talked about queer ecology on this on Pangolin Pride so far. Looking at nature through like a queer lens. How would you describe yourself using terms in nature? So my default answer, the first time somebody asked me this, I immediately answered right away. And I don't think this is still true for CJ, but my immediate answer right away was a frog on a lily pad is my gender.
Oh, I love it. I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. So like, okay, so like, it would be taking.
Like
a vision, like
like in
taking
your
something.
brain, if you can close
Yeah,
your eyes for a moment and just picture a frog on a lily pad, and then just that energy, that's gender. Because we make up gender anyway. Like, I feel like if I were to ask that question to myself now, I
yeah,
might paint a different picture. I
yeah.
might paint a like rainy spring day with magnolia
Hmm.
blossoms blooming on a tree.
Hmm. And I think this is interesting, right? Because how do you divide? And what I'm kind of struggling on, I think, is because it's attached to gender identity, and the way the question was framed was like around gender
It's
identity.
gender, yeah. It's not like a spiritual moment. It's not a personality.
No,
It is a
it's
gender.
not.
So
Mhm.
for me, that like rainy, I feel like I'm usually wearing like dark tones. I feel like I'm usually like trying to like hint like a hint of femininity in what I'm wearing, so that like magnolia blossoms. But I'm usually trying to be very comfortable. Like I feel like when people are kind of out on a rainy day, you are trying to be as comfortable as you can.
Mhm. Then I would probably like thinking about it. I'm like, okay, like I would start to place and maybe like and I would place like if someone was to be like describe I would be something like the Banteng
Sure.
where I feel the most comfortable in earth tones, in like as evidenced by what I'm wearing today,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah,
feel
yeah.
comfortable in these natural browns, greens, earthy tones. I feel like there is like a grace and there is like like but also like with an edge of like something there that like there's something around that maybe is if I explored more into it of like
Yeah.
that would be where I'm starting to unpick it. But that's
Yeah.
such an interesting, and
Because
I think it's such
gender is what
yeah,
we present, right?
yes,
Gender is a matter of expression. There's obviously like
yes,
this internal interpretation of gender, and obviously
uh
there's
huh,
sex, which is different.
yeah,
But as an organizer, as a leader, it is our job to sort of understand ourselves so we can better understand others, right? So when we're thinking about this question of how would you describe yourself without using gender, even saying something like, I am a child of a parent, that is without gender. Or saying, I am a person who has many pets, that is a part of who I identify as. Or I am someone who wears a lot of earth tones, right? That is, again, a part of how you express yourself. A- an even simpler answer could be, I use blank pronouns, right? Pronouns aren't necessarily gendered. We gender them, but they aren't necessarily gendered.
mm-hmm. That's yeah, and I think that's something it's so like when you start to, and it's one of those ones that when you start to question the established things, right? They establish like what is the norm that like it all falls apart so
Yeah.
very quickly of
Well, think about
like
even just like clothing, right? Like if you wear blank clothing, clothing doesn't have gender. Clothing is fabric.
yeah, yeah. And I remember having a conversation with somebody who like I remember having this conversation with a friend who um their sister is trans, and when that was first kind of brought to them, and they struggled with this idea of like, oh, but they don't necessarily present in the way that I would, and so that and I remember sitting there and going, well, I don't want to like, this is not to make minimize
Right.
that, and I like, but
Right.
you, my friend, you are sat in front of me in a big baggy kind of jumper. You're sat
Uh-huh.
in front of me in these non-stereotypically feminine, right,
Yeah.
things. So why are we why like our brains are hardwired when we try and project that onto
Yep.
someone, like we go,
Yeah.
oh, that they should be, it's like, well, you don't represent that in you, and you've never represented that, like it becomes this kind of like, yeah, it's and those chat that it's something that's come up a couple of times throughout the series, right, is learning to sit in the uncomfortability of that and learning to sit in
It's
the
a big part of
uncomfortability.
this. It's a really big part of it.
Yeah, and being willing, sometimes you are going to say things that are wrong, or say things that maybe later on you go, that wasn't the right thing, or that wasn't, but you will grow and you will learn. And if you have the right community around you, they will help you find your way, and like they will help you to realize exactly who you are and what the importance of that. It's yeah. Hmm.
I mean, it's all about just like acknowledging mistakes and growing and moving on. I always tell people when they mess up pronouns, like, because I feel like It's maybe just an assumed like, "Oh, I'm gonna mess up. I don't feel so bad, but I'm gonna do it. It's eventual." And I sure. Uh-huh. Absolutely. Again, I'm gonna be frank. I've messed up people's pronouns as a trans person. It is a thing that happens. Everybody makes mistakes. The issue becomes about one intention. What is your intention when you misgender somebody? And then what is the impact over your intent? Right? You might intend it as an accident, but what was the actual impact of that? And sort of it's about correcting yourself and moving on. If I were to misgender you, Jack, and I were to say, "Oh, I'm so sorry," what is your immediate response when I say sorry?
I'd be like, no problem. Like literally,
But it is
like,
a problem.
mm-hmm,
I've made a problem, and it's a
mm-hmm,
problem.
yeah. Mm-hmm. But I suppose it's to minimize my own uncomfortability. It would be to be like, "Oh no, it's fine." Like, maybe that
Yeah.
speaks to me and my.
No, no,
I've
no,
like,
because
let's
I do
just
the
not
exact
like,
same. I'm the exact
yeah.
same way,
Mm-hmm.
but it's putting the act of growth on you when I apologize, when I'm the one who needs to grow.
Yeah. That's yeah, yeah,
So
and
my
yeah.
my advice for people if you accidentally misgendered somebody is to correct yourself. And if you need to quickly apologize, but like if you're like, I know that I'm the type of person who needs to apologize, you can do it quickly, but just move on. Just correct yourself and move on. That I think is the best and I think most effective tip, other than just like practicing, whether it's in your head or with a friend, like making sure you're practicing using people's pronouns. I get in a bad habit of using they them pronouns for everybody. I just forget people have gender sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think that's. I kind of am like. I think sometimes I'm like. I think I've gotten to the point where I'm like. If being called they, like being if
Yeah,
someone using they them pronouns on for a person
yeah.
like bothers you, then I feel like you fall into a category of people where I'm like, I want to bother you.
They're
Uh,
probably not listening to this podcast.
no, no. But what I also think is important around this, right, is like if you're thinking and you're overthinking and you're worried and you're kind of concerned about things. I don't know if this is a similar thing for you, but I recently I was having coffee with a friend one day and they were literally like, so at work someone has she/them in their bio and I don't know like what does that mean because are they she her or are they them like talk to your like
Yeah,
ask the
ask,
question
ask.
because we people will like if if you have the right friends around you they will
Yeah,
help you navigate that, right? And
yeah,
I think in asking the question it shows you're trying and it
yeah.
shows you want to grow, and it depends on the framing of the question, but it like when it comes from that genuine place of like I want to do the best and I want to be making sure that I respect people in the most inclusive and nice and kind of safe way, I'm never going to go, oh come on, why did you ask, come on,
No,
like
because it's about wanting to respect people. Especially again,
yeah.
it's about people know your intent. If your
Yes.
intent is good, people will usually look
Mhm.
over your negative impact of asking a weird question.
Yes. And like, is your intent to create a space or is your intent to take a space away? Because if we're
Oh,
gonna have a
love
like,
that, Jack. Love
yes,
that.
are we gonna have that? Like, I don't know where that came from, but I feel like that's a like I yeah, I'm gonna use that again in the future of like,
Uh,
what is your intent with that?
yeah.
And like, yeah, because if it is to be destructive and deconstructive and remove this space, then like we're going to engage very differently. We're going to talk about this very differently. Um, the nice thing, and I know that within every field, that like within every field, this becomes a problem. Sometimes it becomes it can be not every field is perfect, and not everyone within every field is lovely and wonderful and accepting. Um, I have found generally within the conservation community, certainly the younger generation,
Yeah.
there is more openness and like
Yeah.
just a positive energy there. I have
Yeah.
found certainly within
Yeah.
like the spaces I exist in. I don't know if it's that's a similar thing for you.
I would say like generally, yes. I will say too, there's a lot of really well-intentioned people who maybe aren't of this younger generation who just don't have the knowledge. And I used to be the type of person to be like, well, it's not my job to educate you, look it up. But actually, I'm an educator. I've taken it upon myself to educate you. It's why I'm on this podcast. Um, it's queer folks have existed forever, and we're not going away anytime soon, despite the constant erasure, especially here in the United States. And pride, I mean, I feel like I'll say this again when we wrap up the podcast today, Jack, but pride exists outside of Pride Month every year. There are queer folks existing every single day of the year, all day long, 24/7, and so few of them are in 100% safe situations. No matter if they're in a safe place or not physically, it might not be safe everywhere in their lives.
Hmm. Yeah. And just to, and even within their own heads, they can be going through something that you have no idea, right? They walk into a workspace that you think has been perfectly lovely, perfectly wonderful. You've made everything safe. You've made sure everybody is doing the right thing, but you don't know what's going on in their brain and what they've gone through, or where they've passed by, or the things that they've seen, or the graffiti, or the things that they've passed on a bike on the way to work, or had shouted at them, or these things. So making sure that those
I mean,
yeah,
just like even
like
just like interviewing for a job, I will say like the
mm-hmm,
past three, again, I've been very lucky. I have the best job I've ever had. But like when I interviewed at Lincoln Park Zoo 3 years ago, I had to ask, is this a safe? I'm a trans person. Is this a safe place for trans people? Is there a gender neutral bathroom that I can use? If there's not, am I safe to use a gendered bathroom? What are your organizational policies? These are questions that if you're like cisgendered or you're straight, you will never have to think of. For my grad program, a big part of it is looking to travel and gain knowledge from other parts of the world. I can't go to so many places because I'm trans. Before I came out, I spent 3 months backpacking in Australia. I can never do that again now that I'm visibly queer. And while I was there, but while I was like figuring out who I was, I got it like harmed. And I'll never do that again, even though it was one of the best experiences that trip, because it just wasn't safe and it won't be safe. And there's so many queer folks who deserve safety. Every queer folk deserves safety. And it's our job as a community, as listeners of this podcast, to create those spaces.
yeah, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Like yeah, and yeah, and like I am. I'm trying to think of the right way to respond, because I think I am incredibly sorry that that ever happened to you.
I mean,
Like,
yeah, I feel like it's a like a 1 in 4 chance with queer
mhm,
folks if they've
yeah,
experienced something like that.
hmm, and
Maybe
I'm
more.
also like, but I'm also like I am. I'm also so like I'm so in awe of you as a person, because I feel like there's so many people who any situation, whether they like any situation, a similar situation, when somebody experiences something horrible and traumatic, can so often push them down a pathway where they don't want to be in a public space, right? Where they don't want to stand in front of a room full of people and go, and that is 100% understandable and perfectly, yeah, good, get it, fine. But what I think is so amazing about you is that you have taken experiences like that and gone, I don't want that to happen to anybody else.
Yeah,
I'm going to make myself visible, and I'm
yeah,
going to kind of
yeah,
throw it in everyone's face and go, well, now I'm
yeah,
going to make sure that nobody else has to go through that, not in my space and not in my bubble.
yeah.
And
I
that's
mean,
so
my whole thing is
beautiful.
like I work mostly with teens in my day job, right? Like I'm the
Yeah.
teen programs manager at the zoo, and I'm a very visibly queer person, both online, in person, and I make it a big deal that I am a trans person because if like on my personal Instagram account that will probably be shared with this episode, I've gotten like hate comments. I'm sure the comments if you were to post this on Twitter would too, right? Just because the world is full of people who maybe aren't so kind and loving. But I would rather get those comments about me than like a kid get those comments when they're still trying to figure out who they are, when they're still growing and developing. Because I'm an adult and I have therapy.
Yeah.
You know, I have
Yeah.
insurance. I can get access to
Hmm.
the care that I need when this kid might not.
Yeah. I I wonder, like, and that's a question that I've had, and I've kind of like, and it's something that I'd be interested to hear about your
Yeah,
kind of thought on in terms of like creating these spaces
yeah,
is how do we like, I don't want to say police, how do we manage the spaces where you have, and I've had this where there's a classroom full of people with very diverse backgrounds,
Hmm.
very different parents, being exposed to very different languages at school,
Yes.
very different ways of treating people.
Yes.
I'd wonder, like, when you're creating these spaces for teens, in your experience,
Hmm.
how do you tackle if something like this comes up in the classroom? Because
Yes. It's a
I
great
find that
question.
challenging, because like you don't want to be like
Yeah.
shut down mean,
No, Jack, that's a really
because,
good
but you
question.
kind of like, yeah, how do you manage that?
Yeah, for me, it's about setting norms and expectations, right? I don't love the term norms because innately queer people are outside the norm, but what we use instead is community agreements. In our classroom, we are a community. What do we all agree upon? And I am as just as much a part of the classroom as my kids are, right? When I have a group of 15 teens and they are making the rules, I am the 16th member of that team making those rules. And we all have to agree, not just them, myself included. If they set a rule, I'm gonna have to follow it too. So, what do we agree on as a community? Maybe that's be kind to others. Maybe that's we listen and we don't judge, right? Like maybe it's
Hmm.
whatever, like kind of like cheeky tongue in cheek thing the teens want to say,
Yeah.
but that could be a real rule, right? That they want to agree upon. I think that's a really important part of any classroom. I think too, even like I'm not sometimes always in a classroom leading folks. So just setting expectations of folks when leading informal classrooms, right? So if I'm leading a nature outing and I'm leading 10 people on a walk through the outdoors, I have two main rules. My first one is just like it's not the golden rule. Do you know the golden rule?
Which,
The go-
in case
yeah.
there's a cultural difference there of
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Golden rule is treat others how you want to be treated.
yeah, yeah.
But I would say we're not doing the golden rule. We're doing the platinum rule. It's treat others how they want to be treated because they might not want to be treated like how I do. And two, if you see something, say something. Whether that's like bad behavior, call it out, or a cool animal because I want to see it too.
Yep, yep. Love that. Hmm.
Like
Like,
it's about helping each other grow, is what
yeah,
it's about.
yeah. Hmm. Yeah. If only grown-ups could do that, because kids get it most of the
I
time.
lead it. I
They
lead
get
it with
it.
grown-ups too, and sometimes they do
Hmm.
really get it, and sometimes it's a
Hmm.
struggle.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and it's, but again, it's like same, like you have, like, I don't know. I sometimes find it challenging where I'm like, internally, if someone says something that's hurtful or upsetting or that triggers some kind of memory, that you're like, ooh, to remain in that space of like, okay, even no matter what age you are, I don't know your backstory, I don't know your context, I don't know where you've come from, and that's not an excuse to allow behavior. But I remember like once being like yeah, I like there was a, yeah, one group one year kind of using, in a way that was derogatory, not
Yeah,
in intention, but in
sure.
the way that in tone of like
Yeah,
describing somebody of like,
yeah.
oh, they're the gay kid, right? And like
Hmm.
the word gay,
Y-
like it is like, okay, they are okay, cool, whatever,
Sure,
that's,
great,
but
but
like
also,
using it in the tone and like even like getting them to understand that, like kind of like having that moment of going, that is a like that might be part of their identity, that might be, they might be perfectly comfortable with you describing them as that. They're not here. And when you're in this space and in my space and in this space we're creating together, just be mindful that not everybody, like is like in the same, has the same background in the same context, but then internally not. And the struggle there,
yeah.
right, is like you don't want to be like shut it down based on your own triggers in your brain of like,
Sure. I
don't do
feel like
that.
it's always again,
Like
just
it's,
like we were talking
mhm,
about before, Jack. Ask the
yeah,
question. Hey, when
yeah,
you said that, what'd you mean?
yes, yeah,
I always love when people make like inappropriate jokes or like sexist or
hmm,
racist things that they say. I actually didn't get
hmm.
it. Can you explain that to me?
And then they shut down
And then they have to
immediately.
explain their
Hmm.
prejudice and they shut
Hmm.
down. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. Which, yeah, and it's not an exercise in making them uncomfortable for
Nope.
the sake of being mean. It's the
No.
same. It's a learning. Like, come
100%.
on,
Yeah.
like this is. There's sometimes where like you're like, this is bad. You know, like, and you're just pushing your luck to see if you thought anybody in the room would get along with you on that. But like, come on, no, that's yeah, that's really interesting. Like, yeah. This is yeah. I wonder, is there any more kind of? I feel like you have had a big long list of things, and I wonder if there's is there any more kind
I
of
mean, there's
top
a few
tips?
things. I think too, I think the biggest thing, like other than like impact versus intent, right? That is a big one. But then there's this concept of tolerating versus affirming, right? So I always hear that like, oh no, I accept LGBTQ folks, or we tolerate queer folks, especially in like certain contexts that we don't have time to get into. But I definitely hear a lot of that, especially in certain spaces. Tolerance is not like the the definition is the capacity to endure subjugation to something. Queerness is not something that you are subjugated to, right? Queerness is not a matter of something that's passive, and it's certainly not validating to say that you tolerate queer folks. So the word that I like to choose to use and try to make sure when I'm leading people to do is make spaces affirming, right? Like earlier in this podcast, I was affirming you. Same thing. Affirming is emotional support. It's encouragement. It's this continuous active process. It's not passive like tolerance or acceptance. And it's that platinum rule. It's treating people how they want to be treated. That is
Hmm.
affirmation.
Yeah. Hmm. And I think what's also just to add a bit to that, and this is based on my experience, and I don't know if this you'll agree
Mm,
or like maybe, but
yeah,
like for me,
please.
I'm like being that affirming presence, but also understanding that being in that affirming role does not mean you are always going to be the point of contact, and it means that you're not always going to be the person that someone wants to open up to and talk to, right? You can affirm and make people feel safe without necessarily being the person they want to talk to, and then
110%. I think it's about like setting your expectations. My job is, I know my job is not to be that person, but I can be if they need that. My job is to make the space. That's my job. That's all I do. If I am asked more, I will do more. But my job is to affirm.
yeah. Mhm. Yeah, give people create that space. That's yeah, that's beautiful, and I think that's a really nice yeah. I feel like that's a really like I hope that people have. It feels what's so interesting is like it's so often in these podcasts where like we talk about something and unless we're talking about animals or plants or this or that or the next thing, right, people are like directly people are like why are you talking about this, but I really hope, and I think you will, like the listeners will, hopefully you will um see the value in this kind of discussion as well, because I think this is such a core and important thing, and I think it transfers beyond, far beyond, and this has come up a number of times throughout the series as well, is like this idea is this is about more than just queer people,
It's
right?
more than queer people,
These
and it's more than conservation. Like it
yeah.
extends into so many avenues beyond this podcast scope.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, yeah. And I hope that like, even if you listen to this on your way to work at a bank, right? Or you will go listen to this because it's your little dose of conservation, or you listen to this on
Okay.
your way to be an architect or a I don't know, what are normal jobs? A bus driver
Ugh.
or
I don't know. We both work at the zoo. I have no idea.
I'm like, I don't know what do other people do?
I
What do they do?
couldn't imagine.
No, yeah, but like, but if that's like it, this is so transferable to you in your
Hmm.
life.
Yeah.
So please, like, yeah, think and kind of reflect on it, because I think it's something that even after this conversation is done, I will take away and reflect on and go, okay, how can I improve my practice? How can I? Because this is the other thing is, and like, it comes down to the like just because people belong to a community does not mean they have all the answers to all of that community's problems, and they should not be put the emotional labor of that should not necessarily be put on members of that community. Always, it takes your reflection and it takes your growth for that to be effective.
I always say this when
Like,
people like, if people like say, "Oh, I've never heard of that identity. Can you explain that to me?" And I'm okay doing that because that's my job. I'm an educator. I'm really happy to explain things to you, probably more than you want me to. But if somebody says like, "Oh, I identify using neopronouns," or I'm demi-romantic, queer plus non-sexual. I don't know. I'm like sort of putting all the labels together on the intent of it not making sense, because it's okay to say, I don't know what that is, but I'm gonna go look it up and I'm gonna learn about it. I'm not putting that responsibility on you, the queer person, the marginalized person. I,
Yeah.
as the non-marginalized person, will take ownership of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll go with yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
an important part of the whole process. And
absolutely. It's learning
it's
and growing, and it's everybody. It's not just the people who aren't members of the community. People in the community learn and grow too.
yeah. Yeah. Because there is, and I think like historically there is like, and this is something that again, like this is a whole other conversation, but
Yes.
the internalized hatred and shame and things that have been placed into
Ooh.
people
Uh-huh.
will manifest sometimes
I
in
mean, you and I could talk about
ex
that for a long time, Jack.
yeah, that's a whole other episode of like,
Uh-huh.
but it's something
Next
that
month.
like
Next
next
year's
year
Pride series. Next year's Pride series.
we'll come back. Maybe it'll maybe be less cheerful, but it is something that
Ugh.
like is, but it is an important one of like just because people belong to a community doesn't mean they have these things that like they have to deal with and they're working through, and they might not have had the support or the friendships or the kind of heroes to look at. So yeah, placing that pressure on them is yeah, again, it's about all of us, and it's about growing together, and it's about making sure that we can all, I don't know, we can all just exist in a place and enjoy a zoo and be empowered, and we can do these things, right? Like yeah, it like oh, if like, and I yeah, and again I applaud you for doing this at conferences filled with people who like probably get it but also then
I mean,
ask the
I feel
silly
like
and
I've talked to people who
scary
certainly
questions.
don't.
Yeah.
I've talked to people who certainly don't, and to me, if they walk away from me talking with 1% more knowledge, that's a win. If they are slightly more tolerant, that's a win. If they move from tolerance to affirming, that's a massive win.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's, and maybe it's something to do with the zoo or nature educator role is like we are fighting an uphill battle in many ways of our career
Of
of like,
course. Yes.
and so maybe we are more equipped to deal with people being like, I just don't see the
You
importance
know,
of
I'll
XYZ.
I'll say
Like I
something that maybe
mhm.
is, I don't know how political your podcast is, Jack, so feel free
It
to tell
can
me to.
be.
Okay.
No, I yeah.
Tell me to stop talking if I get too far. I don't think I
Okay.
will, because I'm just gonna say a sentence.
Okay.
But like, the zoo world is so wild because people approach it from so many different angles. For a lot of people, it's I am a conservationist, I care about the well-being of the world. For some people, it's I really love animals and that was my in. But for some people, it's I really love animals and that's where I stop. And so they might really love the animals that they get to work with, but they might not really care about what's going on in the world. I've met a lot of people who are um uh um trying to use nice language, um who voted for things that I disagree with but still work in
Yes.
conservation technically
Mhm.
because they have their needs met and they do not see beyond that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. And I yes, and I think like that was a question in a discussion I think I was going to ask about of like why is this important now, and I think that sums it up. Like that discussion doesn't even need to go much further of like yes, do like yeah, like and it is often disappointing when you find
Sure.
that out, and
Yeah,
it is often frustrating.
of course.
Um and it's yes, and there is yeah, there is certain certain comments get made sometimes that do really rile, like I'm like you just like yeah, it is frustrating, and I think it's something that like I in the past have been scared of being political necessarily on the podcast, and I think I've been scared of saying things because I go what if I push someone away, or what if I upset someone, or what if I challenge somebody who, and I'm getting to the point where I'm kind of like, well,
Mhm.
sometimes we need to push a little bit. And I think you pushed it just enough there without
I think it's okay to
like,
push a little
yeah,
bit. It's
yeah,
okay.
yeah. Because what we do in the spaces we want to create, while they shouldn't be political issues,
They are.
are being used as political issues
Yeah.
and are being used in a way that is gross
Yep.
and inappropriate
Yep.
and disgusting and
Yep.
wrong,
Yep.
and are now by moderate people, even on the side that we believe in and we would vote for, being dropped
Yeah,
because they can't see a way
to hold it.
forward
Yeah.
with it to
Uh-huh.
they can, and without like it is so incredibly frustrating,
It's devastating.
so incredible, and
It's crushing. It's
Yes.
it's it's heartbreaking, truly.
Yeah.
But the one thing that we can do, and the one thing that I think I'm going to end before we maybe do any sort of wrap up, is if you are existing in the world right now as a marginalized person, whether you are queer, you're a member of the LGBTQIA plus community, you're a person of color, you're a woman, right now, the biggest thing that anyone can do to resist is to express your joy. Joy is an act of resistance against oppression. So finding those moments of your wins, right? Finding moments like this where I'm able to sort of have this candid conversation about how to create those affirming spaces, that's what brings me a lot of joy. And I get to spend the rest of my month, my rest of Pride Month, kind of riding this high of knowing that people are going to listen and people are going to learn. And that brings me joy. And this is my small act of resistance. I can't make monumental change, but I can make small change by just feeling this and feeling proud and feeling prideful.
Yeah. 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 I love that because I think there is there is a tendency to feel disempowered, but
Yeah,
joy is the most powerful. Like if they
there's nothing
can't
like
strip
it.
that,
There's nothing
like
like it.
no. And I wonder like before I move into the because it almost touches onto some of the like last three questions that I ask everybody. But I think if I before we kind of move into that and start to wrap up, I think something that I would like to ask is there a moment or a memory or something you have where you've had one of those moments of joy and gone like, this is what makes it worth it. This is what makes it powerful. This is exactly why we need to create these spaces and why I do what I do.
Yeah, there's a program that we do at the zoo, and we've only run it a couple of times because it hasn't time hasn't made it happen, and also the world's been pretty crazy, especially here in the states. So we haven't had access to run it. But we do a program called Safe Space in Nature, and it is a program sort of for um, like LGBTQ and allied teens to come to the zoo and learn about careers in conservation in a safe way. Um, we all know there is scientific evidence that being in nature promotes positive well being, and careers in nature can be really, really positive and rewarding, but can also be really difficult to break into as queer folks, as I certainly know, right? And but many, many others know. It can be really impossible to break into any sort of field as a queer person. So getting exposure to it as a young person, um, queer or not, can be really positive. So we had this program, Safe Space in Nature, and just seeing so many young folks from so many varieties of identities help with bird banding and learn interpretive programs about queer ecology and do macroinvertebrate sampling and all these different like kind of really interesting and unique scientific and education programs tied up kind of theming around the queerness of nature. These kids got to see queer scientists and educators express themselves in a really beautiful and wonderful way, and then got to mirror that in themselves. Whether they're, straight and cisgendered, they still got to show themselves in who they are. Queer folks, queer kids got to do the same. I would say every year or so, I work with a number of like students who are like young and coming out as like trans or non-binary or queer of some flavor, and just them like looking to ask me questions about just like general things about what is it like working here as a queer person. I can tell you all about it because it's how I live and how you're going to have to live too if you continue to do this. And those moments of like getting to make impacts with young people makes everything I do worth it. Everything I have ever done has been to be the footnote in someone's story, and I get to do it every day. It's the best.
Hmm. Hmm. I yeah, and I just want to say you're not going to be a footnote. I feel like
Ah,
that's a very small part. I feel like you're more than a footnote.
I
Like,
but that's all I need. If it's more, I'm
mhm.
thrilled, but that's all I need.
Okay, okay, yeah. Okay. I think that's a very humble like place to be, and I think you
Thanks.
will get more than a footnote in most stories.
I,
So
I
that's
will
very lovely.
I will be perfectly honest and frank. I already have gotten so much more than a footnote.
Hmm.
When we spoke back in November or December, I think it was late
Would have
December.
been yeah.
Um, we talked very briefly about my speech at NAAW last year, And a big part of that speech was focused in the plenary session was focused on I didn't think I'd be here this long. I didn't plan on being here this long. Like the average life expectancy for trans women in America is 35. That's the average life expectancy. For trans women of color, it's even less. Um, so, I'm almost 30. I'm almost to 35. I'm almost at the average life expectancy for people like me. And I didn't expect to be here that long. The fact that I'm still doing things and making a difference, the fact that I've been honored with things like 30 under 30, NAAA, like that's bigger than I could ever possibly imagine, and already exceeds my expectation and hope of a footnote.
That's yeah, that is beautiful and that's incredible. And
Yeah.
I am so glad that you are
Yeah.
being seen for all of the incredible things that you do
Thank you,
because
Jack.
yes. And I think on that very hopeful, wonderful,
Yeah.
incredible note, I will move towards. We have three last questions
Wonderful.
that
Let's do it.
you have been asking everybody to kind of wrap up the show this month. And the first of them, I feel, is slightly less applicable to you because we have covered this, I think, a lot throughout. And I think hopefully everyone who is listening is feeling empowered anyway.
Yeah.
However, the question is, what would you say if someone has listened to this and feel like they don't belong in the space for whatever reason that might be? They don't belong in conservation, they don't belong in nature, and they're listening to this. What would you say directly to them?
Yeah, the first thing that I want to say is a joke answer. I always joke that like my job, my career has been like 25% scientist, 25% classroom teacher, and 50% comedian. And so
Oh
the
yeah,
comedian part is really shining right now. And I wanted
okay.
to say, listen again. If you didn't get that point, just listen one more
Yep,
time, and maybe you'll get it. Another
yep.
download.
Mm-hmm.
But the
Oh yeah.
real answer is that conservation impacts everybody. Like, sweetie, you are impacted too. You should care about this. You belong in this because it impacts you. Conservation impacts every single person across the entire globe, and it particularly impacts marginalized folks more than not. Queer folks, people of color, women are impacted more by conservation issues than people who are not marginalized. It matters to you and to people you care about. So you should care too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we've just given you an hour of a guide on how to help create that space for you if you
There
still want
you
the like,
go. You got it, sweetie.
or
I believe in you.
or send it to an organization or to people who you want to create that space, forward it to them and get them to create the space for you if you don't want to put,
Yeah.
if because the emotional
Yeah.
labor should not be on you to do all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that is, yeah. Yep. 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 Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really have nothing more to add on that. That's the
Excellent.
perfect, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Lovely.
Excellent.
Um, the second question I've been asking everybody, and I don't think I asked you this. I
You
think
did
I asked
not.
you what the most underappreciated, like, of the year would be.
Yeah.
But now for you personally,
Yeah.
CJ,
Yeah.
what is your favorite underappreciated species or creature?
You know, I because I do so much I guess if you're listening to this podcast, you know me as the queer person who's been talking about queer inclusion. But I do way more than that, obviously. I have multiple dimensions. When we were trying to record this earlier in the week, I had just gotten back from a birding festival, kind of looking at birds in a national park here in the United States, leading a bunch of nature outings in the national park. And I innately wanted to go to like a bird species, but I'm gonna throw another dimension in there. I'm gonna go with a plant species. Is that allowed?
Yes, always, always, because we never talk about plants. So yes,
Excellent, excellent.
yes,
Um, in like mid May ish, here in the Midwest region of the United States, there is a plant that blooms right in the Indiana Dunes National Park. It blooms right across the Midwest. I don't really know its range. I just saw these flowers and thought they were so unbelievably pretty, and I have been obsessed with them. It is a flower called lupin or lupine, Lupine, and it's sort of these like almost like tall purple stalks, like this like lavender-esque purple. And I learned when I was like texting my friend about it that there's a lupin emoji.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is.
And
I know.
it's so pretty. Like, where did this plant come from? It's gorgeous. I've known about it for a few years, but I feel like only in the past 2 or 3 have I really just gotten this deep appreciation for plants. Like growing up as a zoo kid, it's always been animal, 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 animal. But like conservation is more than just animals, and there's so many beautiful plants to also tell stories about. I could talk about a million different kinds of birds, but this random little plant, pretty cute. Definitely not like endangered or anything. I think just in general, plants are underappreciated.
Mm-hmm. I am. Yeah, I'm also like I'm intrigued because lupine
Yeah,
wolf. No,
wolf. Yeah,
so but I've never really put that together until we've been talking about animals and plants in the same sentence, and I agree fully. Plants underappreciated. Number one, two. Everyone should go and admire all because this is
just
coming out
like
in June.
any
Flowers will be in
wildfire,
bloom.
any
Yeah,
wildflowers. Go find them. Go look at them. Go smell them. Go enjoy them because they're
go
so
and look at the
gorgeous and
bees.
stunning.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yes, go and just like appreciate the life that exists around wildflowers because they provide such a support for so many things. And don't
Yeah.
scream and run because there's a little hoverfly or something.
You'll be
Just sit and
fine. You'll
appreciate
be
the
fine.
yeah. Hmm. Even the soundscape that they create, right?
Oh,
You'd think like
yes.
flowers can't create sound. The
Wrong.
flowers don't necessarily create a lot of sound,
But
but
they
the
bring
things they bring in,
pollinators.
hmm like
Right
I'm
now, right
intrigued
now,
by
hummingbirds are starting to
lupine.
come back to the Midwest. So we've seen a few
Hmm.
hummingbirds this year already, which has been really exciting.
I
Ugh.
still remember my first hummingbird, and
Do you
I
did you get
like.
them at all? Like, are there
Oh
hummingbird?
no,
They're a new world thing, right?
so I the first time I saw one was when I was in Arizona,
Arizona, yeah,
and which shocked me as well because I was like, "Why are you here?" Like I imagine them like the only time this goes to like in the UK, the
yeah.
main place you will see hummingbirds is in like shampoo adverts, and it's always like it's always like, "Oh, look at the tropical bloom," and so they're in like a rainforesty space, and you're
Sure,
like,
which is
"Wow,
where
this is."
most hummingbirds are.
But in the
But
desert, I was
yeah,
like, why are you here? And
yeah.
also, I'm so glad you're here because you're this like they have the same. And on a previous episode, on the last episode, we
Mhm.
talked about kingfishers,
Oh
and
God, I
I
love
think they have
kingfishers.
that similar like the feathers
Wait,
are
can I
just
add another one? Can I
incredible.
add another species?
Okay,
Yes.
go for it. We've
Look,
already gone long. What's another 5 minutes,
these are the
right?
benefits of friendship, folks. These are the benefits of friendship. I just got so you're talking about hummingbirds and kingfishers. I just love birds. I'm gonna add a bird. The black crowned night heron is a state endangered species here in Illinois, but it is the world's most widespread heron species. It's found on every continent except Antarctica. The black crowned night heron,
Black. Okay.
and it is
Currently
just
searching.
so pretty. It has this sort of like almost like tuxedo look about him. He's got like some nice like beautiful eyes. He has some fancy pink
Mm-hmm.
stockings on. Gorgeous bird. Just love
Mm-hmm.
background night heron.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Also a good choice. I like this.
Thank
I like
thank
this.
you.
And I feel like we couldn't have, like it's kind of, I like how I'm always like, oh, we need to talk about more plants, and then as soon as someone offers a bird, I'm like, move out the way, lupine, move,
Look,
move.
I love plants, but unfortunately I love birds more.
And that's
You
okay.
got to get a
One
botanist on the
day,
show, Jack. I'll recommend a botanist to you next time.
I need many botanists. I need like maybe I'll just do like Pangolin, which will
Oh,
just be
oh my
like
god,
a
wait, that's
series of like
adorable. Pangolin? Okay, no
could it
spoilers, but can
be?
this happen?
I think it should.
Excellent.
So I have maybe got like so there's this series just ending. Then I
Yeah,
have 4 episodes that'll be coming out, 3, 4 episodes that'll be coming out in like July or
love,
something. Then I was going to do four. I've planned quite a bit in advance, but at some point
love,
we will do Plankolin.
love
I think that would be cute.
Pangolin.
That's really cute. Maybe in spring next year
That's
when everything's
adorable.
blooming
If
again.
you're looking for some recommendations, I have a few, so let me know.
Okay. I will be back in touch.
Excellent.
That's also my PhD is technically with a botanic garden, so if I can't find people, I feel like this is going to be a problem.
Yeah, you better.
Um,
You better.
yeah. Um, oh no, that's brilliant. That is brilliant and incredible, and I love that we're already planning. As always with the two of us, I've got too much work to do, and I'm already like, let's do something else.
I mean, you and I are content creators. We're looking to create content. That's who we are.
At all times. At all times.
Yeah.
If there's not a picture, it didn't happen. If there's not a video, it didn't happen. If there's not a podcast about it, who cares?
Didn't happen.
No. So, speaking of content,
Yeah.
the last question I ask everybody is if people want to keep up to date with the work that you're doing,
Yeah.
where can they go? Where can they follow? What can they be doing
Yeah.
to support you in your work?
So, I mean, the number one way to support what I'm doing is support the organizations that I work with. So, organizations like Out in Nature, organizations like Lincoln Park Zoo. Supporting those organizations is a huge thing. But honestly, just like spreading the word of being kind to people. But you can follow the work that I'm doing, specifically me, on Instagram. It's pretty much the only social media that I use these days, even though Meta is not great. Instagram, you can follow me on Instagram there at cj.greco. That is cj.greco. I post semi-regularly updates, kind of just what I'm doing, what I'm working on, who I'm working with, all kinds of things like that. Um, Out in Nature, you can follow on Instagram as well at Out in Nature Shy, and then you can visit our website outinnature.gay. That's real.
Love it. Yep.
And then Lincoln Park Zoo, you can Google it because that's how you find it.
Yeah. Why is not why I'm like why is every company not .gay? Why are
It
they
should
not
be. It should be.
like
It's so fun, and it was so much cheaper. Outnature.com costs $35 or costs like $100.
no?
But you
And
know how much
I,
outnature.gay costs? Like 30.
I feel like yeah, and like honestly, if every brand did it, that would be a rainbow washing. I'd be like, do you know what? Okay,
Okay, but for
it's
real,
kind of
imagine
live for
imagine
that.
like Google.gay. You know what I
Google's okay.
mean?
Oh,
The
like
letters are
yeah,
already rainbow.
yeah. See, if you're gonna half commit to Pride Month,
Commit.
go
Just commit.
gay, go full gay, go full. Love that. No, that is brilliant, and I'll put links to all of that in the description of the episode, so people can go down there, have a look, have a search, follow you, find all the websites, do all the things. Yeah, engage with everything that you do. I will also put links to all of our content down there. So at Pangolin Podcast on everything. I'm at the only Jack Baker on Instagram, so you can find me there. Um, and then what else? Subscribe to the podcast, leave us a nice review, 5 stars, because it's been a fantastic series. Five
Yeah, it
stars for five
has.
amazing episodes, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also make sure to subscribe because coming up very soon, as I said, I am collaborating with an incredible organisation, Sinfonia Cymru, which is a Welsh orchestra who are putting on who I am going to Wales to record a bunch of episodes with them about a concert series that they're putting on, which is about music, the migration of birds, and it's also been contributed to be it's being contributed to by a refugee choir who are tell their story through the migration of birds.
Jack,
It's
this
a
is
fantastic
rad.
thing.
This
I'm
is
so
so
excited.
cool.
Like I'm going to record like I think it's the first week
Yeah.
of June that it's happening. So I'll have been editing
Yeah.
all of June and the episodes will be coming out very soon. So make sure to
Hmm.
subscribe to that.
Exciting.
Um and then Pangolin will come at some point, so you've got to
Some
be
point.
there.
I'm excited for Pangolin.
Yeah, and make sure and follow us on social media because I'm going to be posting far too many clips of far too many things there. And yeah, I just want to say because this is the last episode of the series, thank you so much. I'll thank you in a second, CJ. Don't worry, I'm going to come back to you. But I also want to thank all of the other guests that we've had. Number one, for being the heroes that we have discussed and we need, for putting yourself and your stories out there, for being unapologetically brilliant and fantastic and wonderful, and for raising the bar for me and for every one of us to be just incredible and inspirational. I also want to thank everybody who's listened to this series and used it as an opportunity either to be inspired or for reflection or for growth or just to kind of spend Pride Month celebrating in a fun, interesting, different way. Thank you so much for supporting the show because last year we did this series and I had 8 amazing guests. And honestly, the response that you guys, the audience, gave me is the reason that we came back and did this again because I was really nervous that like I was last year I was really nervous that I was putting 8 people onto a pedestal that if the response was negative, I would be responsible for doing. And that was such an unfounded like it's a very real fear and it's something that I needed to work through and need to continue to work through about my nervousness for these things. But you as the audience made it so welcoming, so caring, gave so much nice feedback, used all of the information those people gave you, and just made it exceptional. And I cannot thank you enough for that and for making me feel welcome and loved and making them feel welcome and loved. And I'm sure you will be doing the same for all of this year's guests. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And we will be back next year. Like, we will, because it's becoming a staple on my calendar. So yeah, we will be
Love,
doing this again next year.
love,
Um,
love.
yes, and CJ, thank you.
Oh my
Just
goodness.
thank you for being here, for sharing your experiences
Of
so openly, so
course.
candidly, for being a force for good, for creating spaces for so many people to grow and be themselves and just yeah, and thank you again for just inspiring me and inspiring so many people. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me back on the show. I mean, this is something that I love to do, and I love that, you and I have made this really fun connection, and I really hope that we can continue to keep working together because this is
Hmm.
always a blast, and I feel like you and I have so many stories to share. So
Hmm.
we should make it happen at some point.
Yes, yeah. Like there needs to be. We've got Pangolin. There needs to be some like CJ Goblin, like the birdie.
Mm,
There's some way you can combine Pangolin and the birdie.
yeah, I bet there is.
There's a
Well, you
pun
and
in
I will
there.
figure
Well,
it
we'll
out.
think
You and I
about
will
it. Yeah,
figure it out. Yeah,
yeah. And we will collaborate on something again very soon.
I
I am
love it.
sure. Yes. No. Thank you. And this makes me really sad every time I have to say it
Yeah,
because it happened last year and I felt sad and I'm feeling sad again now.
yeah.
But thank you all so much for listening. And for the final time, happy Pride Month,
Happy
happy
Pride
Pangolin Pride.
Month!
Like, thank you for being amazing. And until next time, goodbye.
Catch you next time.
Bye.